Hey, good evening. How are you doing? Since I started being a musician and an artist in general, I have received all kinds of feedback: requested, unrequested, positive, negative, constructive, destructive feedback. And since always what I used to do is to filter that feedback, and I thought that my criteria to filter it was actually fine. But then later on I discovered that you can actually take something from each piece of information that gets to you, but there is just a catch, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. My name is Leonardo, and in this channel we talk about music composition and production. And if you stay with me today, I will tell you 9 tips to get the most out of your feedback. So let's get started. So I thought, let's start with an example. Let's say that you have just released your new track in which you have spent a lot of time and a lot of work and effort, and then somebody comes out of the blue and tells you something like, yeah, but I wish it was more modern because it sounds a bit old. What does that even mean? I'm sure that you've gotten a lot of examples like this during your whole life, and yeah, there is always something that you can take out of it, but most of times it sounds like something that that person would like to have, or some sort of projection that that person has over you, rather than a constructive criticism that's aimed to help you grow. What I am arguing today, what I am trying to defend, is that from every piece of information that comes from somebody else regarding your art, there is something that you can take something out of. I think the key is to take into account the other person's perspective when you are getting any information, not just feedback, but for our case, we will just focus on this situation. For example, take into account the knowledge of that person in this field and in this specific genre in which you are working on. They might be very good musicians, but not understand your genre or your style very well. Also take into account the intention of that comment. Think of whether they want to give something to you, whether they are trying to criticize you out of jealousy or envy. That also plays a big part in communication. There is also another very, very big thing in this, and that's the way in which you interpret that information. So this is a little bit like that game in which you tell something to someone and then they do the same with other people, and then when the message gets back to you, it's completely distorted, but just between two people. So you have here someone who's trying to give you some information, but that is heavily filtered and broken by their own mind. Then it gets to you and you have to interpret it based on your expectations or your knowledge or what you know about this person, and finally the message gets to you. You can see that it's just a very tiny bit of it. So taking all of this into account, you can already tell that there will be more valuable feedback than other, but that does not necessarily mean that you should discard them completely. What you should do instead is try to understand how that feedback can be valuable to you, rather than extracting the literal information about your music. That's a little bit of an abstract concept, but I hope that with the tips that are coming now, you will get a better picture. So first tip, don't take it literally. Some feedback can and have to be taken literally, like those getting from your teachers, for example. They are telling you very specific things because they know you and they know what you are aiming to do, so that most probably will help you because it comes from somebody who has already walked that path. But generally speaking, literal feedback is not very useful because it tends to be the person trying to tell you what they believe that you want to do, which is slightly different. So if somebody, for example, tells you, yeah, I think the music is too fast, are they really saying it's too fast, or maybe they mean it's too loud, or it's too busy, or they did not understand it, or that maybe they did not just like it? Don't take it literally. Try to find what's behind what they are trying to say, which is actually my second tip. A trick I have to be able to tell whether a piece of feedback is useful or has to be taken literally is to imagine what would happen if I took it literally. So if they told you that thing of, yeah, I think the song is too fast, or your tempo is too high, try to think or try to imagine how it would be if it was slower. Would it work? Would it benefit what you are trying to say? If so, then it might be useful as literal feedback. If not, what you should do is to try to research and ask more questions about what's behind that. Why do you think it's too fast? Why do you think it should be slower? And maybe the conversation will take you where the valuable information is. Third tip, I already said it, ask questions. Always, no matter what. If they tell you, yeah, I don't really like it, and that's it. Why don't you like it? Is it maybe poorly performed? You didn't like the style? What's the reason? That will give you a very good criteria on how much you should consider the feedback coming from that person. Which happens to be my fourth tip. Feel free to dismiss feedback. And that's especially difficult when it's coming from somebody you admire or somebody you love. The fact that somebody wants the best for you does not mean that they know what is best for you. Those are very different things. So if your best friend listens to your track and says, yeah, I think you should take out the guitar from there, but you know that you should not for whatever reason, then you can always thank that person, but not follow their advice. And if you have a clear vision, you can actually explain to them why you are not doing that. Which is my fifth tip, by the way. Have a clear vision. In my previous videos on this series, you can see how much I stress this idea. Always have a clear vision. Know what you want to do, and then know how you want to do it, how you want to achieve it, how you want to implement your idea. That is crucial. If you know that, you will be able to filter much better the information that comes to you and tell which one is useful or not. Sixth tip, subscribe. Seventh tip, consider each and every piece of feedback that comes to you. And this is not in contradiction with tip number 5. I did not say you should follow the feedback, but you should consider it. And to consider it is to try to understand where it's coming from and why it is being given to you. Only then you will be able to know whether it's useful or not. But don't dismiss directly a piece of feedback because of who is coming from or what they are telling you. Always consider what they are trying to tell you or what's behind it. Eighth tip, be thankful. The reason why this is a tip is because if you are thankful and if you thank the person that is telling you something about your piece of art, it's more likely that they will repeat that action, that they will give you more information in the future. Never dismiss information, is extremely valuable. Ninth tip, detach from your own ego. You should be able to look at your piece of art, at your track, your album, your song, your composition from outside of yourself and consider it as another one. Normally and usually that only happens when you release it, because we start seeing it from a different perspective. We lose control over it. Only when you compare specific elements of your art with those specific elements of other pieces of art from other people, you will be able to have a proper objective view. Otherwise, and that is actually my 10th tip, give feedback to yourself. Do this as an exercise. Whenever you finish something or you consider that it's finished, leave it aside for some time, it doesn't matter, hours or days, and then come back to it and pretend that you are somebody else. This is a very powerful exercise. Pretend that you're somebody else and try to think what feedback you would give to that person. And be honest with you. And try not to hold back because you know what you are asking is difficult or because that is deviating from the original intention. Just try to tell you what you think that somebody else will tell you. And I can guarantee that the results will impress you. Again, and before I leave, I would like to stress that the most important part of all of this is to have your vision clear. The common ground of all the tips that I've given you today and of the videos I am making on this series is to know what you're doing and know how you want to do it. Have your idea clear and have its implementation clear, and then everything is going to be easy and everything is going to be useful for you. In any case, we have run out of time today, but I appreciate you very much staying with me and watching the video. Please let me know any questions that you might have or suggestions in the comments. Give me a like if you have enjoyed it, and see you next time.